Welcome to You Decide. I'm your host, Errol Lewis. It has been over a month since Queens Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani shocked the New York political establishment by winning the Democratic primary for mayor of New York City. Since that time, people are trying to figure out what comes next. One of the people who is a little bit upset about all of this is veteran Democratic strategist Dr. Sheinkopf. He is somebody who has worked on dozens and dozens of races over the years, over the decades, really. And he believes that Zohran Mamdani is not going to be good for the city, not going to be good for the Democratic Party. He, in fact, has started a political action committee specifically to counter Zohran Mamdani. He's one of many who have tried to set up these little structures to try and raise money, start running ads, knocking on doors, or whatever it is they're going to do to try and stop the rise of Zohran Mamdani. He joins me today to talk about the race for mayor and much more. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
I would never begrudge you the right to be paranoid.
I'm not paranoid. I'm not paranoid. In fact, I'm optimistic.
Tell me.
I can't wait to
Well, let's start with this. How is the Mamdani campaign an existential threat to Jews in New York?
Let's start from the beginning and say it was a brilliant campaign. Remember, this idiot on this station said 7 months ago what? What'd I say?
I don't know. You didn't say it on my show.
Well, Annika Pergament remembered very clearly that this was the guy to watch.
Uh-huh.
I said it.
Yes.
I also said on this program, no, not in your program, but I think it was here, that the strategy that he would use would be to target what we call zeros, ones, and twos. Mm-hmm. People who, 0 in the last election, 4 elections, 1 of the last 4, 2 of the last 4, that they would be under 35, and that would give them the victory, which I also said. Mm-hmm. So the victory is not surprising. That's not surprising at all.
Okay.
The fact that he represents, when you have any kind of seriously contested election, which you understand certainly, it represents a demographic shift of not insignificant proportion. It represents a cultural shift of not insignificant proportion. And it tends to either result in new confidence in the government in New York City, or it results in an exit of people from New York City. Mm-hmm. Why? It's worse now because no one has to stay here. Mm-hmm. They don't. They can, if you look at, I told reporters a long time ago, and I think Peter Elkind from the Wall Street Journal wrote a piece about this a couple of weeks ago, that the place to watch was the Dallas-Fort Worth corridor in Texas, which is booming. And they don't have an exit. They don't have people exiting. Mm-hmm. We have people exiting. Mm-hmm. They have people going there.
Right. And what is it about the victory and the victory that you foretold by using or relying on or exciting and mobilizing low propensity or first-time voters? Sure. What about that is going to drive people out of the city?
I think it's brilliant. I don't think that drives people out. I think the fact that this man with no experience, who has had a very, frankly, very easy life, with very few complications, who's managed a budget of $150,000 a year, mm-hmm. has done very little for his home district, frankly, if you look at the member items and where they've gone. But like AOC, who's also done very little from a constituent service perspective for her district, that this is the future. Mm-hmm. And if that's the future, then New Yorkers are in for a big surprise.
Mm-hmm. Why is it, I guess what I'm having a problem with is the certainty. I get it if you say, hey, we're taking a chance with this guy. We don't know what he can do because he hasn't been around for very long. Same with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But you seem certain that it's not going to go well, as opposed to maybe he's a prodigy. Maybe he'll get it right. Maybe he'll surprise us.
Could surprise us, but I'm kind of an idiot. I'm very well read, and I'm reasonably well educated. And I listen to everything people say, and I read what they say. And I read what he said, and I've read a lot about him. And anybody who cares about pluralism and the civic culture ought to read that very carefully.
Let's come back to that. Actually, I should give you a proper introduction by letting you explain to my listeners how many races you have worked on over the years. You've done quite a lot.
Hundreds, all over the world. I'm a very lucky man. This is not what I expected my life to be.
In New York City politics, I forgot which year it was where I think it's 2 out of the 3 citywide offices were clients of yours?
Yeah, I did. I had 3 out of 3 on the runoffs. I think absent 9/11, Mark Green would have won that race.
2001.
2001, I had Bill Thompson, Betsy Gottbaum, and Mark Green.
Uh-huh.
And absent 9/11, Mark would have won that race. So,
okay.
It was great. I mean, I don't know, I've done, I worked for 3 or 4 controllers, Betsy was the first woman public advocate elected in New York City history. I mean, I worked for two of them. I worked for a lot of borough presidents. I did a lot when surrogates were good. I did 4 good ones, and I screwed up one. So 4 out of 5 ain't bad. My borough presidents, I mean, I've done it all here. Councilman at one point, although firm Berlin Rosen's done a very good job in council races, I must say. Mm-hmm. At one point, going back, 30 years or so, I'd probably done at least 1/3 of the council. But,
I'll call you Dr. Sheinkopf because you got your PhD and I watched you sweat through it. So that's legit. But you also spent time as a cop. I mean, you're I think of you more of like kind of a street operative, more so than an academic.
Well, I'm BA, MA, MPhil, PhD, and I did it. I'm a former high school dropout, as you know, as well. And I did it because I wanted my children to never believe that you could leave something undone. And I thought it was important to do. And I'm a former police officer, and I'm not unproud of that either.
Where'd you come up? What neighborhood?
Hunts Point in the South Bronx.
Okay. I'm
the product, as the Wall Street Journal noted, a relationship between a 15-year-old woman, 19-year-old father. And I haven't known a day's peace in my life. So I know no apologies, but I'm the prodigy of the New York that we should have and the New York that I think will disappear. Because if you look at who's voting for Mamdani mm-hmm. and who they are, they ain't from the street. They ain't from my world. And if the tax issues that this man is talking about come to pass, the people like me who worked in kitchens, who were short order cooks, who were mm-hmm. dishwashers, and a porter, and I was side by side with blacks and Latins my whole life, which is why I guess I am who I am. Those stores are going to close because they're not going to stay here. Because who's going to pay the tab? Who's going to pay the tab?
But he, despite what you might think about the policies, I first encountered him. In fact, I think I might have talked to you for around the same time.
Sure.
One of my first columns for New York Magazine was about the yellow cab drivers who had a hunger strike. They had 8 suicides. It was a debt trap. There were these corrupt credit unions that got them into all kinds of troubles. Sure. The de Blasio administration, of all places, wasn't really bailing them out the way they should have, and they went on a hunger strike. The only politician who went on the hunger strike with them was Zohran Mamdani. Uh-huh. And I went in and talked with him. I was actually pretty impressed that he went down there, and he was kind of starving himself a little bit, and it wasn't a very popular cause at the time. I think he does get it when it comes to the at least that slice of the merchant class that he's been exposed to directly among South Asians.
That may be the case. I mean, South Asians are a significant part of the city's economy. People get deluded. They look at Queens and they say, oh, no, it's all blacks in Southeast Queens. Nonsense. Mm-hmm. You go to 190th Street South, right? And you start going south, Hillside Avenue South. South Asians are buying properties, building communities, building lives. Mosques are being created where there are Muslims, people living together in reasonable harmony. I think it's very important. The dynamic that makes this place so great is that so many people of so many kinds can live together without killing each other all day long. Mm-hmm. 170 languages alone are spoken in Queens. It's extraordinary. We have people, we have 900,000 or so, I looked at the data, people from Africa who are making New York City home, who are striving to build lives. It is the most amazing place in the world. My concern is that possibility will end. Why? Because confidence is what makes that work.
Yes. Okay.
And that's part of the problem I have with them. And also, I frankly, because I'm an idiot, I read books. And I read things that people say, mm-hmm. and I'm very careful.
Now, what has he said that bothers you?
It's what his followers say,
mm-hmm.
and that he has yet to talk about.
Okay.
I think his people have been very clear about defunding police, not because I'm a cop. I was a cop, and when you're a cop, you're always a cop. I don't care how long you weren't on the job.
You represent a bunch of police unions.
I also represent police unions,
mm-hmm.
But that's out of choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not. Oh yes, give me the money, please. No, that's out of choice.
Oh.
I've represented all the police unions in New York City in coalition, and I proudly represent the Detectives Endowment Association, the greatest detectives in the world, unquestionably so. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about such things, I'm not about law and order. You reflect a belief that somehow order is not important. Order is what keeps us from doing the worst things. The civic culture that we have in this country, which is now being destroyed, mm-hmm. Or falling apart, being destroyed is probably closer, is a function of order, that we believe in each other and that we can live together, and somehow we're not at each other's throats because of ethnic dynamic. What we're witnessing in our lifetimes is the end of the so-called Judeo-Christian ethic, which was part of what kept the country together after the Second World War. When people went to war, the Catholics in this country went to war, and the archdiocese and the cardinals wanted them to in many ways, not because they wanted them to die, because they wanted Catholics to be accepted. The dynamic that kept the city together was that sense of the Judeo-Christian ethic. It's changing not because we have new minorities who aren't Jews or Christians. It's because the level of civility is down. Mamdani's rhetoric about Israel, his historical loathing, which is Swayman this week's Wall Street Journal wrote that, and it's clear. There's nothing new about that. The fact that that there's only an excuse for it, not that he has nothing to say about the policy of the Ugandan government toward gays, which is among the most reprehensible in the world. As someone who brought the Teamsters in the gay rights battle and helped get that law passed, I find that absolutely reprehensible and disgusting. And from someone who wants to be a mayor, well, really, give me a break.
So this is more about what he has not said then, right?
And it's also about what he has said, or what he allows himself to be near that is said.
Help me understand the role of foreign policy in New York City elections. What difference does it make if the next mayor is where you are or where you think he should be, whether or not he thinks, for example, Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal?
I don't care about Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not what I'm interested in.
Okay.
That doesn't matter to me. Leaders come and go. It's attitudes that stay. And when a mayor says things, they remain. When a leader says things, they remain in people's brains. It's just the way it is. When you talk about defunding police, your people talk about it, and you smile. It's as if you said, "Yeah, have a nice day." Go ahead. When you don't say anything about Uganda, it's have a nice day. It's okay, but it's not okay because the mayor's position is to be a moral authority, and that is lacking in this man's character based upon the things he has allowed to be said in front of him and the things he hasn't said about them.
Do you think that's because he doesn't understand the role of the mayor as you understand it, or do you think it's because he's actually in sympathy?
Because he's in sympathy. I mean, his whole life when it comes to Israel, this idiocy, these, I'm really not pro-Israel, I'm a Jew. Well, let me tell you something. That's really well and good, except the intermarriage rate of those people is about 80%. They're not going to be Jews most of them aren't Jews now, according to the law. I mean, they can say what they want, but they're not. They're going to fall in line, and they need to read things like Tom Segev's book on German Jewry. It doesn't work. It does not work. Why? Because it's not how it happens in the world. This didn't start yesterday. I think the people voting for Mamdani and that younger generation do have a beef. They got lied to. They got told that they would be masters of the universe if only they went to these colleges and took these student loans. They would be masters of the universe and they would make all this money. But they're beefing, and they have a right to beef because it's hard to buy an apartment and it's hard to buy a home, and they're having to pay college loans off. And I think that the federal government has failed them in that regard because mortgages ought to be cheaper and the federal government ought to be guaranteeing them, number one. Number two, we ought not to be telling everybody to go to college that costs $90,000 a year and that you can pay a loan off. Sally Mae made money on all that stuff. It's a disgrace.
Right.
These are wrong things, and they have a beef about that. Okay? No question about it. But they don't have a beef about a lot of the other things they're saying, and the destruction of the Democratic Party, which they're assisting in. Because what the DSA is a virus on the body of the Democratic Party. Why? The DSA needs, and the Working Families Party needs the Democrat Party to fall apart. Why? Because it's impossible in most states to get a third party line on a ballot. You get rid of the Democrats, you can do whatever you want. You can use them. Bernie Sanders did. Bernie Sanders has been using the Democrats for years.
Let's poke through these one at a time. On the defund the police issue, as a slogan, the first time I heard it in the summer of 2020, I thought it was crazy. I thought it was inaccurate, because really what they were talking about is reorganizing the police, making it so that they're not responding to whatever insane number it is of emotionally distressed persons. They're going on like 10 calls a day.
EDPs are dangerous, number one. Number two, I mean, if you've ever rolled around the floor with an EDP, you know how dangerous they are. And that's not something for civilians in most cases to be doing. The so-called thing about domestic violence calls. Domestic violence calls, I may remind you of one, I think it was in the 2-3 in Harlem. 2 cops murdered.
Sure.
Rookie cop had to kill the guy. But even more so, we're talking about basic ideas that require more clear thinking about governance. Because if the city cannot protect people and it doesn't have enough people to do it, then where are we living? Hold on, number one. Number two, the ideas he's talking about will undermine the municipal labor force.
But you understand this better than anybody.
Yeah.
Let's say, I understand you don't agree with it, but let's say there's a policy reason and an argument for moving some boxes around within the NYPD, right?
Why not?
For taking some stuff off their plate, for having 988, a number to call when it's not 911, When you
Good
think your kid is off their meds, they're acting a little funny, but we don't need a guy with a gun. We need a social worker to come and talk them down or something like that. Can you do that? I mean, well, I bring this up because you know better than anybody. Well, when you're on the campaign trail, you don't have time to say everything I just said. So you end up saying something inaccurate or dumb like, hey, let's defund the police. Right? But this is a dilemma that every politician encounters.
You're a very good newsman. You always were. You're a reasonably good candidate, but a very good newsman. You found your niche. The problem here is that we're arguing over numbers. When you're in a situation, I've talked to cops all my life, only a trained person can evaluate that situation. Number two, and I want to say this before, again, all good ideas, I don't believe that the road to hell is paved with new ideas at all. Quite the contrary. And you know me to be different when it comes to that. When you create all these nonprofits, you increase the cost of government exponentially, which we've seen. You reduce the civil service population, which I think is anti-union and wrong. And that's what we're talking about here. When you get away from the cop thing, you do an experiment and you have to determine, but you need police officers to determine what kind of situations uniformed personnel ought to be transported or dispatched. With respect to the creation of nonprofits, it's a scam and a disgrace because municipal workers ought to be doing that work. So what we're doing is we're spending more money on nonprofits. Therefore, we spend less money on the least paid of the civil service force.
But you wouldn't seriously.
I represent them.
But you wouldn't seriously change your mind if people were saying instead of police responses to some of these, say, domestic violence cases, we brought in, Local 371 or something like that.
My pleasure. They're brilliant. I represent them. I have to. I love Anthony Wells, who I think is one of the best labor leaders in New York City, unquestionably so. Those people are hardworking. They're serious. They put themselves at risk in many cases. Let's get them engaged.
Got it.
I'm in favor of it.
But
don't tell me you're going to get people from the outside and non-civil service to do this work.
Got it. Totally got it. Right. Right there with you. So let's move from that to this whole question of whether or not, as a leader, Zohran Mamdani and the people who are behind him, I guess more to the point, are going to take the city in a place where it shouldn't go, or that's going to sort of, drive apart some of the coalitions that have held this city together. City's been changed for 400 years. You know better than most people, right?
Absolutely.
So now we have younger people. It's a little browner. It's a little different. It's a little more. It's what it is, right?
I don't care about that.
Yeah. So what is it? What is it that is going to a place where the Democratic Party can't absorb it? You say the DSA is trying to crack apart the Democratic coalition.
No, it is. They need a place to go.
Yeah.
Every virus needs a body to infect.
Well, what is it about the Democratic Party that they can't find an answer to what young people are legitimately asking for, which is a future?
I'm not sure that's true. I think young people are asking for something different. They're angry, and they're asking different things. They're asking, they are the most generous. They are whites now. I'm not talking about black people. Yeah. And those are the majority of people who voted for him. Okay, they are the most pampered, most moneyed, most educated generation in the history of the world. They stand to inherit, on the death of the boomers, people like me, the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. Okay. Yeah. They complain a lot.
But they still can't afford an apartment.
Wait a second. I've never seen. I don't know the number of them I've seen volunteering after schools in minority neighborhoods to help children read. I haven't seen any of them in hospitals volunteering in cancer wards like Candy Stripers used to do when I was a kid, okay? I have not seen one of them, not one, and entering into fraternal organizations like the Masons or the Rotarians or the Elks or the Lions to do community-based work, Hawaiians, who've done extraordinary things. My question is simple. If they don't do it and the civic culture continues to break down, who's going to do that work? They're not going to do it. You know who's going to do it? People look like you are going to do it. Well, they're elitists because they're elitists.
If it's going to get done, number one.
That's correct. Because the destruction of the civic culture, religion, okay, is on the way out, except in the South.
You're saying destruction. Do you mean erosion?
No, I mean destruction.
Withering away.
I mean destruction because we have a generation of people that you're talking about who have borne no burden, paid no price, and have never done the dirty work of democracy in any way, shape, or form.
Here's the other side of that, of course, as you know, which is they saw the Iraq War. the mortgage crisis,
Right.
all of the failures of the status quo that led to Occupy Wall Street, led to the Black Lives Matter movement, all of the unfinished business of things that they thought were going to be taken care of that never got taken care of. And now, on top of everything else, they can't afford an apartment in Manhattan.
I want to tell you something. I couldn't afford an apartment in Manhattan when I was a kid, so... I mean, I couldn't afford an apartment anywhere, so I don't know what they're talking about. Let's get real. You can't afford an apartment in Manhattan? Don't move to Manhattan. Move to Newark. You build a city.
I was just telling somebody today.
Gentrify someplace else. They moved to neighborhoods and jacked up the costs by gentrifying to make sure that indigenous populations could no longer afford it to live there. Crown Heights, good example. Okay, below Crown Heights, going toward the Grand Army Plaza, good example.
Sure.
How about Bushwick, largely Latino, okay? Can't afford to live there anymore. What are we talking about?
To the extent, I went to a DSA meeting like 40 years ago, right? It was at Manhattan Community College. It was a bunch of professors. It was like a faculty meeting.
DSOC?
Yeah, DSOC, exactly.
Different
Democratic,
deal.
well, this is the predecessor organization of the DSA.
But this is a function of SDS, and the new one is, this DSA is SDS plus DSOC. And the more reasonable voices of DSOC, like the Harrington kind of, the Michael Harrington kind of thing, is over, not there.
Yeah, it was mostly academic, and it was Barbara Ehrenreich, and it was Michael Harrington, and there were some people like Ruth Messenger and Major Owens.
Well, two intellectuals.
Some intellectuals. How is today's DSA, the successor group? How are they different?
Anti-Israel, which, they can delude themselves all they want, but again, you ought to read Tom Sageb's book in English on German Jewry to get the point. You can't delude yourself. I mean, this is delusional. I am very much upset. I'm beyond imagination about Gaza, and I'm very much distressed by the rape, murder, the hacking to death, the brutality, and I don't think there's any justification for what was done to those Jewish women primarily. And I think the hostage crisis is a disgrace. But I'm more concerned about a bunch of elitist bastards who sit around worrying about that, but have never said a word about the 600,000 people that were murdered by chemical and biological agents in Syria. Not a word. The Druzim that are being murdered on a daily basis, the Chaldean Christians who are murdered in that part of the world, the Circassians, the Zoroastrians who were murdered by the Iranian government, the Baha'is that were taken out and shot. Not a word. If it's not Jews, it's not news with them. And that's the problem. And they're ashamed of their Judaism. I understand that. Come see me, I'll help you. I'll send you to a psychiatrist or I'll help you through it.
Okay, Rabbi Sheinkopf.
That's true, I am.
Willing to minister, yes. The two shifting propositions that I think are new for New York City politics are, number one, BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, has basically been mainstreamed at this point.
Sure.
It appears to be the way that Zohran Mamdani got into politics in the first place. And then some activists actually want a one-state solution, which has, as far as I can tell, not been seriously advocated since the 1940s.
Yeah.
Where they're saying, everybody together in freedom with equal rights, regardless of religion, nationality, or anything else.
I think
it sounds idealistic. It sounds like post-apartheid South Africa.
We had one. It was called. We had it in the British Mandate, 1929. They hacked us to death in Hebron. They raped women. They did what they do. In 21, they did the same thing. I mean, what are we talking about? That's not realistic. What is realistic is for people to stop the nonsense. Jews are not leaving. When you say from the river to the sea, you're not talking about you're not talking about Mr. Clean coming with a brush.
Right.
This is idiotic. I mean, not going to happen. Although somebody did complain to me last week, he said, those, and I said, good, throw your cell phone out the window, rip out half the back of your computer, go to your medicine cabinet, take out 50% of the medications and flush them down the toilet, give yourself polio, give yourself AIDS, and give yourself a COVID right away. Because that's the start. And take the pacemaker out of your chest, okay? Start cutting, go to your surgeon and tell him, please cut my chest open and don't use the non-chest breaking techniques. And for whatever you do, please, if you get a neurological disease, don't use those drugs.
So your take is that, right, Jews are not going to leave Israel.
We're not leaving. We'll be leaving New York.
But I was going to say, why would they leave New York?
Because it's because if some place is inhospitable, why would you stay? The guy who's in charge says, by the way, and you should see the anger on his face when he discusses this. He loathes the state of Israel. It's not dislike. Swayman, like I said, the Wall Street Journal had it right. You want to inject foreign policy into politics? Have a good time, but there is a reaction. And also with
You
his rhetoric.
don't take him at his word when he says, if I'm elected mayor, I'm not visiting any country anywhere. I'm busy. I'll be busy taking care of, New York City.
Listen to me. I was in the second generation of professional political consultants. I did this before there was public financing. So if you lost, you didn't eat. Now idiots lose all day long and they eat. I never said it's what I call the political industrial complex. They keep eating.
Yeah.
So I understand words. Do not lie to me to my face, as Michael Corleone would say. I'm not a fool. I'm not a fool. You can say whatever you want during a campaign, but your words follow you. When you say or allow the words to say globalized intifada to be said anywhere near you, what it means, contrary to what his apologists say, is what it meant at the time it occurred. The intifada was about buses being blown up and people's body parts all over the street. It was about things like the Iranians blowing up a senior center in Buenos Aires because they could. It's about attacks on people in the street. It's unacceptable. Condemn it. What are you going to do if it happens here? What are you going to say? Well, it was a nice day. And we killed a few people. So what? They're Jews. It's not bad. Yeah, they were Zionists. That's the other thing. So Zionists. I saw him do it the other day. He said it. Again, if you judge a person by his behavior, then you judge him by his words as well. And I find it most extraordinary. What risk did this man take? What risk did he take? What did he do to defend democracy? The dirty work that generation has not done, that's required to make sure this all goes
Well,
on.
of course, what they would say is that, look, they're marching in the streets, they're voting, they've got civic participation, they got the biggest turnout in a Democratic primary since 1989.
It's brilliant campaign.
Yes.
You get all those working families party people here from Philadelphia, where they now the second most important party in this city. I worked in Philly a lot. They replaced the Republicans, and their streets are not safe, and people can't walk around. I think it's a great government. Try it. You'll love it here, too. It'll be perfect. Garbage doesn't get picked up. In Northeast Philadelphia, it's a disaster when you take the Amtrak down. Do it. It's good. Try it here. It'll happen here. It'll be great.
My wife and I like Philadelphia.
I love it.
Let us take
I happen to love Philly. I think the Art Museum is great, and I worked there a lot and spent with the equivalent of years in the city working on campaigns. So what I don't like is what it's turned into when you get away from the tourist areas. I used to go up into black communities, go to churches with politicians and all kinds of other stuff. Can't walk around. It's not fair. It's not fair to people who deserve to be allowed to live. That's what I object to.
The downtown's kind of scary, too. I saw more homeless people there than I expected.
It's terrible, but again, San Francisco, I worked in San Francisco a lot. It worked out real well, right? The DA there, the Working Families Party DA, the Soros DA, excuse me,
Chester Boudin,
It worked out real well. It's worked out real well in Los Angeles, too, right?
We shall see. Let's talk a little bit about where this race is going. Andrew Cuomo is in because he thinks he has a path to victory. Curtis Sliwa is in because he thinks he has a path to victory. And so is Mayor Eric Adams. How do you assess the three of them?
I think that Curtis Sliwa is a very decent person who really does love this city. I think that he put himself at personal risk because defend the city.
That's a theme with you. That's opening stakes for you for somebody.
What is it that you believe in, that you're prepared to do something about? My brothers and I, all of us, all three of us, four of us, three of us anyway. What are you prepared to do for what you believe? Curtis Sliwa is a very decent person. Do I think you can win? The answer is no. Andrew Cuomo, I know forever. I mean, before this race, I was the only one that ever laid a glove on him, as you know, twice. When he ran for governor in 2002 and when he and his father tried to take over the Liberal Party. The Teamsters sent me in. I'm proud to have represented Local 237 Teamsters and still do. It's my first job when I went into this profession, my first retainer job. Anyway, do I think that they had me make sure the Liberal Party stayed in control of liberals? Do I think that he can win this? I believe that by September, he'll be in the position he was in 2002. Because although the polling number show one thing, when the campaign begins and IDing voters starts, he'll be lost because the campaign he ran was the exact opposite of what's required in this particular time. And it's hard to see how suddenly the Palomino becomes a chestnut. Doesn't work that way.
What was he doing in the primary that he's trying to apply in the general? That's what
he's
you're
a different person. You really should continue to love him, and he's going to be much more personal and personable, and it's not working out so far. I went online because I'm kind of an imbecile, as you know. And I wanted to check the comparatives and the metrics on Cuomo's appearances versus Mamdani's appearances. And it was shocking because Mamdani just bested him like 70-1. I mean, it's not.
Well, he's half his age. He's got a lot more energy.
Not the question. It's a question about what people feel when they view it. When they view images, they love, well, by the way, just parenthetically, being half the age matters and it doesn't matter. Going back to what you're saying about the young people, they didn't want Kamala Harris as the nominee of the Democratic Party. They wanted Bernie Sanders. And the idiots in the Democratic Party didn't understand that, so they didn't come up with something that was a compromise, right?
Right.
And they created their own demise. People in politics tend to kill themselves.
Well, Bernie wouldn't have won the race.
But it doesn't matter. George McGovern was important. He was an important transitional figure. He wouldn't have run the race either. But it was important that he ran. That's the difference. I mean, Democrats are just not paying attention.
You'd like to see a Bernie Sanders candidacy?
No. I think that I was a Clinton, as you know, Clinton head maker. I shot the first ads for the president in 1995. We were 17 months early. We weren't supposed to do it. We did it. I shot the ads in a crime bill, which is kind of interesting and funny. But the Democrats need to come up with a centrist who's acceptable to the younger people. That's going to be very hard to do. If not, we're going to have a country for a while that exists from Miami to Phoenix, which borders are like the Mason-Dixon line across.
Sure. The Confederate States plus some of the Southwest. Obama was a centrist who really got the young people excited. That was just raw talent and charisma, though? Right?
No, I don't. I think that I think that it is unfair to Obama. I think that he had charisma. He is extraordinarily smart, but he also did something that has important value. Coming up with a reasonable conclusion that benefited more people that Trump is now undoing with health care, which is a basic human right, was an unequaled achievement. And to be able to go through what he went through to get there and the abuse that he took is an indication of the measure of the man. And I have tremendous fondness as an American for him. I think in some cases in foreign policy, he was not as well-versed, but in domestic politics, he was absolutely right on the mark.
So let's bring it back to New York City. We were talking about Cuomo. You think he's got kind of the wrong pitch for what he needs to do to get young people behind him? Is that the idea?
No, to make himself age neutral. The issue here is age neutrality. It's for people on the bottom who are now the young, which is I find most fascinating because they're most, again, pampered and educated and moneyed. They're on the bottom, Yeah. I was on the bottom, pal. I know what this means. I mean, this is a joke.
It's relative.
You must be kidding me, right? I mean, what are you, serious? Anyway, it's finding that middle course where you can make them feel that they belong while making others feel that they belong, and that's not what's happening. We have a completely polarized electorate.
Sure.
So when you have a polarized electorate, ultimately it gets resolved, unfortunately, historically, by violence or by growing up. And the country is at a very serious point, and people aren't growing up overnight.
Right.
And the last time we had something like this, the solution was the weatherman. Really, think about it.
Well, you said in the Wall Street Journal that you think Adams is the solution, that he's the one who can sort of pull together the centrists and rally the Democratic Party.
I believe that. And why? I'm not a liberal. I am certainly a centrist Democrat, have been all my life, and as someone who's,
a centrist in New York City is pretty liberal, as you know.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I came out of the unions, and I owe everything in my life to having been a union guy and having worked a union job. Do I think that we can come up with some kind of centrist argument here? We're not going to have any choice. Why? Because the state and the city are not in great financial shape. We are going to go through a very difficult period. If Mamdani's elected, on my hunches, it's going to be more difficult. And I think the bond rating agencies are going to have a great time making trouble for New York when we know in the spring if he's elected. I think Adams is the last answer. Why? I also have a problem with racism overall. If Adams is not elected, we will not see a black mayor in this city, I would bet, for 30 years, if at all. And I resent in many ways what was done to David Dinkins, the lie about crime, which you and I discussed many years ago.
Sure.
Crime went down under David Dinkins. It went up under Ed Koch. The Koch administration was the most corrupt since Jimmy Walker. Unquestionably so. And not Ed Koch himself, but the corruption of that administration. And yet David Dinkins, because he was black, was chastised in ways that I think were absolutely outrageous. I'm worried about that happening again with this black mayor, number one. Number two, he has, in the last 2 years, he has come of age. He's understood the job. John Lindsay had similar problems. We didn't run around trying to grab John Lindsay and bang his head against the wall. He's understood. I mean, Richard, Tucker as the fire commissioner, Tisch as the police commissioner, Mastro as the deputy mayor, getting the agencies under control, reducing cronyism, and that's his own fault, but putting people who are much more competent. His conduct in the police shooting is one of personal agony written on his face, and allowing the police commissioner to do her work are marks of a man who is matured. Can he weather the fiscal storm that we're going to experience? No matter who is the mayor, can he weather that fiscal storm better than Mamdani? The answer is yes.
Does the mayor need to give a speech? Does Eric Adams need to give a speech laying out clearly and starkly what you just described? Saying like, look, I'm a different guy than I was in 2022. He needs to tell
people. I mean, John Lindsay created in '69 with Dave Garth's tutelage, and may he rest in peace. Who's quite talented, David Garth. Saying, look, it's the second toughest job in America. He's kind of said, I did some stupid things, but here's what I did that's good. I did something else stupid, but here's what I did, it was good. One thing you gotta understand, this is the second toughest job in America.
Yeah.
I think Adams taking that position puts him in a situation where people will say, wait a second, that's right. I think also the campaign operation has to be different. I mean, if I were running that campaign, it would be Mamdani in reverse, but people over 40.
Say more. What would you do?
Targets. I would go get the black vote back.
Yeah.
I'd be living in the projects.
I tried to explain this to somebody. I live in North Crown Heights, so I'm, north of the Parkway, but I'm right there in the middle of it. And in the primary, one reason I knew Mamdani was going to do well in my area, I didn't know if he was going to win the whole thing, was that they knocked on our door like 8 different times, right? And it was all white folks, our white neighbors from Prospect Heights, who would kind of come into the neighborhood and knock on the door, and they did it over and over and over again. And it was, you get a nose for these things after a while. It's like they seem pretty motivated. They know that we're triple prime voters, and they keep coming back. That's a campaign that at least knows what it's doing. It has a theory about how to find its voters and mobilize its voters. I haven't seen anything remotely comparable to that from the Adams administration.
Okay, look, I said at the time that the Working Families Party and its acolytes would put 40,000 people on the streets of New York. They would come from all over the country. They would be paid well. They would be fed well, and they would do their work. Then there are the locals who would do their work. I mean, you also live in abutting communities that are certainly not on the right. Prospect Heights, Park Slope,
Very progressive.
Very progressive. And of course, you can't ask them, didn't black people used to live in this building, this place? Can't say that, because that's bad. You can't say that. Didn't Latino people used to live in this place? No, never happened. Whoa. Never happened. Yeah. Don't say that.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be some twists and turns between now and November. What are you going to be watching for?
The twists and the turns. I mean, I've seen a lot of twists and I've seen a lot of turns.
Yeah.
I'm curious how Mamdani and Adams adjust to the new environment, which is a general election. I think Mamdani is very confident, and Adams appears to be less confident, but maybe being less confident is more important. I don't think New Yorkers like arrogance. I think Mamdani is very arrogant. And he has reasons to be. He defeated Cuomo, which was predictable. As you know, I've said it. He is very handsome. He is very good to the camera. He understands the nature of social media. The TikTok stuff they've done, which I've watched, is very, very good. Campaign sloganeering and the rest, very good. And that's what they're facing. But I do believe also New Yorkers may look at this very differently overall. And the general election population is somewhat different. This conflict is almost like the conflict over the Vietnam War in many ways between generations. And the generational shift is not to be understated. And they will do, one generation will do what it's going to do in the belief that they're doing right for themselves, that they're somehow changing the world. But the selfishness of the generation that thinks that is so extraordinary to me. And the fact that they have, again, they're the most pampered people in the world and somehow believe.
They said that about the baby boomers.
Well, I have to tell you that some baby boomers were not. I am a baby boomer and not unproudly so.
Yeah.
And he may have said that about the baby boomers. They were pampered, but not like this. I'm sorry. Harvard was not in the plan. Let me help you through this. I mean, I'm not knocking you.
No, I got you.
I'm grateful that you had that experience. But the things that they're bitching about were not in my plan.
Right.
And then, by the way, and not in the plans of the people. Many of the people who are going to be voting in that general election. It's a very different environment.
Okay. I think you said in the Wall Street Journal that you're going to that it would be a long shot, but you think Adams can pull it out. Is that your prediction?
My prediction is that Mamdani's the favorite today because he is the Democratic nominee in a city where being the Democrat nominee is tantamount to election. My prediction is that it will be much more contested.
Why are the unions lining up behind him, the ones that are?
I think that the blue-collar unions have not, by and large.
Right, that is true.
And they understand that Mamdani's plans would make it impossible to build here, which means we'd have no jobs on the blue-collar side. I think the municipal unions are lining up because they have parts of their populations that say, yes, they're left and they feel that way. I also think they know they're going to the table next year.
Yeah.
But if there's no money, you go to the table all day long. But I think they're going to the table and they're prepared for it.
This last city budget was really quite irresponsible. And
so is the state budget.
I'm sort of shocked by it.
The state budget is irresponsible too.
Well, at least they put aside some money for reserves.
Well, she's been good about that, and she's going to be tougher to beat than people think.
Yes.
But what Mamdani does do is he ensures that Nassau, Suffolk County, and a greater part of Westchester are going to be voting Republican, whether he wins or loses, because the threat is at the door. Right. And people know that, and they feel it, and there's no question about it. It won't just be whites.
You're too smart not to be open to the idea of being surprised, right? Mamdani could become the mayor, and he could surprise you, right? He could set off a building boom. He could either disavow or at least subdue a lot of the rhetoric around the Middle East that you don't like to hear.
Well, it's not just that I don't like to hear.
He could bring the city together.
It's stupid. It is just, it's stupid. Could he surprise me? Sure. I'll be surprised when I get invited to Gracie Mansion with the Teamsters Union after we negotiate a contract.
Okay.
That'll be the day I get surprised.
Fair enough.
Right now, I'm a proud New Yorker. Makes me cry, Whatever I have and have done, I owe to this town, and I don't want to see it broken up. Simple. And I think this guy, based upon his rhetoric and his past history, is capable of doing that.
Okay.
For personal gain.
A word of warning from one who knows and who cares about the city. Thank you very much, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me in.
Do you want more conversations with the people who are shaping the future of New York City and beyond? Check out our New York One podcast channel in the description. And hit subscribe to let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, elections, and issues.